You're listening to 91 Reasons, a journey into the twisted landscape of pop culture. Keep your hands and arms inside the podcast at all times. And now, the voice, Jeff Tucker.
Welcome to a special episode of 91 Reasons. I just returned from Star Wars Celebration 7 at the Anaheim Convention Center. I spent all day Friday there, weaving in and out of stalls and looking at toys and collectibles and cosplay. But most importantly, I appeared on Chris Gore's PodCrash podcast panel, and we had a lively discussion about Star Wars, both past and present, our hopes and fears for the future, and what we love most about it. And I am pleased to offer the full audio portion of the panel. I hope you enjoy it. You can check out PodCrash on iTunes. You can follow Chris Gore on Twitter, and you can check out the episode right now.
I do want to say real quick, if you guys have been following me on Twitter, you probably know about my Save Film Threat, Bring Back TV Tuesday Kickstarter campaign. I have buttons for everybody that say Save Film Threat on it, and I'll be giving out, I have giveaways after the panel in the hallway. I'll have giveaways. I've got stickers and buttons and whatnot if you guys want those. So I'll meet you right outside, because there's another panel that's going to be right after ours, and ours is definitely going to go right up to the time limit we have, which is about 50 minutes. So check filmthreat.com. It'll take you to the Kickstarter. It's probably not going to fund, but I appreciate your support, and you know, if you throw in money, you're not going to have to give it to me,
Chris.
So I know I'm downplaying it.
What can I do? Not, there is no try.
All right. I'm doing not. Anyways, okay. So I think we're ready to begin. Welcome, Star Wars Celebration 7.
Yeah!
Welcome to Star Wars Celebration 7 and the recording of PodCrash with me, that Chris Gore. I'm your host for what I hope will be one of the greatest podcasts ever recorded at Star Wars Celebration 7 at noon on Friday. Thank you for coming. I am Chris Gore. I am a big Star Wars fan like a lot of you, or maybe half of you. I saw the movie in the theaters in its first run, and my personal favorite character, Yoda. I think Empire Strikes Back just made me a lifelong Star Wars fan, and that's why I wear this jacket, and which is also adorned with patches. I'm gonna ask each of our panelists, and go down starting with Elliot, to introduce themselves, tell us what's your favorite character, and what you think that says about you and fandom.
Okay, my name is Elliot Sirota. Wow, my favorite character. I mean, most people would probably argue that my favorite character is Boba Fett. And while I love Boba Fett, he's awesome, I would say Obi-Wan Kenobi is probably my favorite character. Because, I mean, the dude's just cool, straight out.
He looks good in a robe.
He does. And he can, you know, he's smart, witty, can fight. Screwed up a little with that training thing with that other kid, but we all make mistakes. And as far as what I think that says about fandom, you know, I think that that's a character who's very iconic, and you know, he's the, you know, if you look into the Joseph Campbell lore and all that stuff, he's the teacher, the one who, and then getting to see his origin as well was really cool. And so I think he's a character worth studying a bit more and looking into.
Jeff. I'm Jeff Tucker, host of podcast 91 Reasons. Thank you. My favorite character from day one, because I saw Star Wars initial run, Luke Skywalker. Who else? He's the hero. And more than that, Luke, because you're either like a Beatles person or an Elvis person. You're either a Luke kid or a Han kid. My friend Carl Harmon was Han because Han was cynical and crazy. I was Luke because I wanted to get out of my house. I wanted to see what was out there. Luke represents the hope in A New Hope. You know, The New Hope is referencing what the Death Star plans, right? But it's also referencing this young kid who's going to come out of nowhere and say, anybody can be a hero. Now, he has a good lineage, right? But we don't know that at the beginning. So Luke represents the hero in all of us. And if Obi-Wan is the wise teacher, Luke is the guy who is actually going on the hero's journey. So
Can I also just jump off what you just said, Jeff? Because everyone thinks Han Solo's a badass. I would say in all the films, Luke Skywalker is the biggest badass. He blows up the first Death Star.
without use of his computer.
He takes down Jabba the Hutt, the vile gangster. He goes to his father. Leia, yes, Leia, but he takes down. Right. Then he goes to his father, hands him his lightsaber, turns himself in. And it's I don't know. I just think that Luke is the biggest badass.
Luke is the badass.
Right, Matt.
What's?
And you forgot that he took down 2 Imperial walkers. Because remember, he said just use your graphic cables. And then all of a sudden he did when he shot the graphic.
Fair point, sir. Fair point. 1 to Gryffindor. Okay, now Matt, let's hear from you.
I'm Matt Kyle, formerly of G4, currently of Sifted Games. My favorite character, my favorite character is Han. I was not old enough to see the original in the original run, so I saw the reissue. And I saw the reissue, and I saw Empire when it came out, and Han's instant draw on Vader in Bespin, it was the most awesome thing I had ever seen at that age. Because here's a guy with no force powers, no nothing, and he just drew on the baddest guy in the Star Wars galaxy. And it didn't work, but you got to applaud that just fearless effort.
Right on.
Mindy.
Hi, I'm Mindy Marzek, and I'm a freelance writer and blogger at budgetfairytale.com. Thank you. Yes, huge fans. Thank you. My favorite character is actually also Yoda, so thank you for stealing that from me, Chris. But also, I really like R2-D2. Speaking of badass, how badass is R2-D2? He just crushes everything. And then I love the Ewoks. So basically anything compact and adorable is what I like. And then of course, when the female Jedis showed up in the prequels, I'm yeah.
So you like Star Wars characters under 3 feet?
Sure, you could say.
That's great. Charlie.
I'm Charlie Lazarica. I'm a filmmaker. That's it. My favorite character is Pruneface, actually. I was trying to think who's my favorite character and which one I had the most emotional connection with all these years. And there's one character who actually kind of made me cry when I saw The Empire Strikes Back in 1980, and then made me cry yesterday when he said, "Chewie, we're home." And that's Han Solo. I love Han Solo, and I love everything he represents. And you could say that Star Wars is about blowing up the Death Star or fixing the hyperdrive or blowing up a second Death Star, but I think it's about getting the princess. And Han got Leia. And did I say that correctly? I was in love with Leia, so Han's my favorite character.
Cool.
Hi, I'm Mary Forrest. I'm a writer-comedian. I have a podcast called The Balloon Forest Project, but it's been somewhat defunct for the past few months, mostly about politics. I mean, we talk a little bit about Star Wars, but I was actually thinking about this because I think if people were just to look around my house or my closet, they would think R2-D2 was my favorite character because he's really cute, and I do think he's very cute. But in terms of the character I most identified with, it was always C-3PO. It was always just this sort of sort of nervous, trying to take care of everyone, blames himself, really guilt-ridden, and then aspirationally, slender British man, which is something I always wished that I was. So 3PO is my most favorite Star Wars character.
Great.
Hi, my name is Lawrence Green, and I am a member of both the 501st Legion and the Rebel Legion. And so I'm going to bring balance to the Force here because I'm with Jeff. My favorite character, if you can't already sort of tell or you don't recognize me, is Luke. Actually, as a kid, I wanted to be either Luke or Stormtrooper when I got into the action figures in the movies. And so through the different legions, I'm basically both. And I am the Luke from the Moves Like Jabba video and the Rose Parade and a couple other things. So I got to actually become Luke Skywalker. And basically for the same reasons that Jeff had mentioned earlier, it's the hero's journey, and I just find it inspirational. It's something that I can relate to more than any of the other characters.
Great. All right, Now, I have a lot of questions for everyone on our panel, but we're also going to play some games. So what I'm going to do right now is divide you up into teams. Mindy and Matt, if you could switch seats, if you wouldn't mind. The teams are going to be Mindy, Jeff, Elliot, and Lawrence, Mary, and Charlie. Our judge is going to be Matt Kyle. And what we're going to do is we're going to play a fun game that I love to play with all my Star Wars friends, which is I'm going to pick a category, and what's going to happen is you're going to name something from that category, right? And then we're going to bounce back from one team to the next. Okay, you cannot repeat an answer that the other team gave, right? And if you take more than 5 seconds to come up with an answer, fail, right? The other team will win. Okay, so here's what I want you to do. We're going to play one version of the game, and Matt, you're our judge. Matt is the mind that will.
This is keeping me out of it, so it doesn't go all night.
Yes, exactly. Because if Matt played, I think it would go forever.
It's going to go forever.
Okay, so here we go. So what I'm going to ask you to do now, we're going to start with, what's your team name? Okay, the Sith Lords against the Jedi.
Oh, okay. I guess we don't get to choose our name.
Oh, wait, yeah, what's your name?
Caravan of Courage.
That's a great name.
We were going to go with the Rancors, but...
The Rancors. What do you guys, you go and want to pick a name? The Rancors versus the...
You pick Charlie.
Charlie.
Wait, what was it?
The Rancor handlers.
Yeah, Rancor handlers. Right.
All right, the Rancor versus the...
Get ready to shovel our...
Okay, we're going to start with the Rancor handlers, and here we go. You ready? I want you to name a Star Wars vehicle.
Land speeder.
X-Wing fighter.
Millennium Falcon.
TIE fighter.
A-Wing.
E-Wing.
TIE bomber.
Y-Wing.
TIE Interceptor.
Imperial-class Star Destroyer.
V-Wing.
Twin pod cloud car.
Advanced TIE.
Slave One.
Super Star Destroyer.
Sandcrawler.
Say one.
Well, we're on the team too.
5, you lost! One point to the Rancors.
Jump in, don't wait.
1 point to the Rancors. Okay.
Speeder bike.
This is a fun game.
Hey, I'm glad I brought my Kenner checklist.
We're going to be playing more of this game as we go, but I also want to start with, okay, we all saw the trailer yesterday. I think a lot of people said tears were brought to their eyes for that final shot. We finally got to see, Han Solo, and we got to see the characters that we grew up loving. I'm going to ask you, what's your new hope for this next trilogy? The last trilogy, the prequel trilogy, was mirrored in a little controversy. It's both loved and loathed. Let's be honest. But what are your hopes for everyone on the panel? Just what are your thoughts about this new sequel trilogy that's coming? And we'll go down the line, starting with Elliot.
Okay. The prequels, love them or hate them, they're there, they're part of the lore, and you got to take it with a grain of salt. And I still love them to a point. But I feel like it's like, remember when Coke came out with New Coke? and everyone was like, what the hell is this? And then they were like, okay, we better bring back regular Coke. I feel like that's what's happening. And, I watched the new trailer, and I was just like, when you see the Falcon flying through, into the engine of the Star Destroyer, and I teared up just seeing the Star Destroyer right at the very beginning, because at first I was like, is that like a settlement on a hill? It's and then familiar faces, new faces, familiar ships, the TIE fighters, like that whole thing in the hangar was just so cool. And then Han at the end. And, when Han says we're home and you see where they are, there's only one place he thinks of as home. And so for me, it was, it was like being a kid again and drinking original Coke.
Hope for the new trilogy and the movies beyond. Well, they set a precedent, a really good one, because, George Lucas offered his help, and they said, we're good. So the idea that they've locked Lucas out
I think bodes well, because a lot of the bad decisions for the prequels come directly from his hand. So it takes an outsider sometimes to reevaluate, reshuffle how you do things. And I have to say, a lot of the trailer, I don't know what I'm looking at, so it's hard to get excited about it. We all talk about the Star Destroyer, the familiar stuff, but there's a lot in that trailer that's just like hands doing this and people walking here and let's get out here. I don't know what that is. So it's very rare that movies live up to their hype. You know, last summer, Guardians of the Galaxy, I thought was going to be a mess, and it was fantastic. So it was really hard to see Guardians last summer and not think, gosh, Star Wars has their work cut out for them, because James Gunn just made the new Star Wars. So I have high hopes for it. I'm a little hesitant. I'm not going to collect all the stuff like I did, because I've still got a blow-up Darth Maul chair and
20 Jar Jar Binks figures still in the package.
All that crap from Midnight Madness, and they're doing it again. So I think the biggest moment yesterday was when that Ball 2 D2 rolled out, and it was like, oh my God, they built it. It works. I don't know how they did it. It's practical. So that's what I'm hopeful for. So let's hope that they've knocked it out of the park.
As the casual fan on this panel, I want them to be good. I just want them to be good. I don't want bad acting and bad line reading. I just really want them to be good, and I want everyone to love them.
As the very non-casual fan, the thing that struck me after all the nostalgia hit me and everything is that I think Rey looks awesome. I don't remember the actress's name.
Daisy Ridley.
Yeah, she looks great. I love the costume design. I love the idea, as far as what we know about the character. And I hope, out of her, we get, a total badass female Jedi who's, a main character that, really, kind of fulfills, the promise you had to kind of imagine with Leia. She had the Force. Maybe after the movie she became whatever, the expanded universe did that. But I hope we really get, a solid central character who's a female Jedi and is awesome.
I'm looking forward to seeing the band back together. I mean, I want to see, our old friends back. I want to see what they've been up to or how they've changed over time. I want to see how the galaxy has changed. I want to see what an imperfect resistance looks like, what a shattered empire, now the First Order, it's called. I want to see what that's like. But mostly, I want to see Star Wars fans unified again after all these years, because before the prequels, and even before the special editions, I felt like Star Wars fans were pretty much under the same roof. We all loved pretty much everything. I mean, even weird stuff or subpar stuff, we loved it. And the special editions and the prequels really kind of put a strong divide between kind of old and new fans. And I hope that this one is a healing balm that just kind of brings us all together, and we're all back in the same tent, basically.
Well, I felt like I think it's scary thinking about what's going to happen with the movies, because over the years that we've kind of been teased with the possibility of what was going to be coming, all of the anticipation. I mean, it's a really dangerous place to be trying to please Star Wars fans. And because we've been burned, right? I mean, we've had some disappointing experiences, shaming experiences of waiting in line and thinking that something was going to be awesome and then realizing oh no, this is a bad thing. So I definitely think not having that feeling, not having the literally friendship-ending conversations that happened after the Phantom Menace, or where you'd be I like that guy, and then he says, I love the Phantom Menace, and you're like, duh. It's it actually became a litmus test for whether or not a person was, cool to hang out with or whatever. So yeah, I mean, I really want them to be awesome movies, and I like the idea of seeing the band back together, and in the way that I would if David Lee Roth started playing with Van Halen again, that kind of the actual band, right? And maybe Eddie Van Halen was from 20 years ago when he wasn't falling apart so much. But anyway, I'm very much excited about it. I'm not a big J.J. Abrams fan, but I don't want to necessarily test that here in this room, because I'm a Star Trek fan. So for me, I feel previously betrayed.
Yeah, but he's a Star Wars fan.
I know, and he made a big point of saying that the whole time that he was taking over the Star Trek franchise. He just kept on going, oh, Star Wars. And I was just great. Well, I'm glad that he's getting a shot. I hope that he's going to take it really seriously and And I wonder if there's any way that I really have so many Mace Windu action figures. I don't even know why. I think that was given them. Like I have like a whole bag of them. So maybe at some point there will be some way for me to parlay that into something with whatever toys come out of this movie. So yeah, I'm looking forward.
Just real briefly, I mean, I echo everything that has already been said. I'm also a super fan. For me, I just want that vibe back. It's hard to articulate it. We'll know it when it's there. That's pretty much what was missing, at least from the first two prequels. Revenge of the Sith kind of reminded us of what the original trilogy had. It touched on it the closest. So that's what I'm looking for. The first trailer, I have to be honest with you, I didn't get that. The second one, I got it completely. For me, it was actually hearing the Luke lines because it connects right back to Return of the Jedi. And then the payoff was with a Han being revealed at the end. So I'm hopeful, but also like Mary, I'm a bit on the fence with JJ. So I'm just keeping it close and hoping he can go in and really deliver. But I have more hope now than I did after the first teaser.
Well, that is kind of the double-edged sword of this one, is like the prequels, if they disappointed you, you could kind of separate that a little bit from the originals, but these are the characters.
Right.
Like, these are them. Like, you know, what if Han Solo's story doesn't end well? You know, that's what I'm nervous about.
I want the magic back. There's no other way of going ahead and describing it. I want to see that Star Wars magic back.
Sticking with you, Lawrence, I want to ask everyone on our panel about spoilers. Okay, spoilers are a big point of contention. I mean, I stood in line with a lot of fans to see JJ yesterday, and it was one of those things where people are having conversations within earshot, and, you know, you want to plug your ears. Where do you guys stand on spoilers? Do you like them? Do you don't like them? Do you avoid them? And if you avoid them, how do you avoid spoilers now with the internet? So, Lawrence, we'll start with you. We'll go all the way down this way. Okay.
So it really depends on the project. For Star Wars, someone made sure that I went ahead and watched the first teaser because I was like, I'm going totally spoiler-free on this. That changed back in November. And then, of course, being here, I felt I had to go in. But what I do is I just make sure I don't go ahead and even tempt fate. I stay away from it. If I see an article, it's like, that's good. I can read about it later because half the stuff will probably be fake anyway, and I don't want to be like, oh, no. And then I can honestly go ahead and say that it's hard. There are, however, only two movies maybe three, that I've ever been able to be completely spoiler-free. Revenge of the Sith, I mean, nothing, and then Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises. I made sure, did the whole thing in the movie theater, closing my eyes, plugged my ears. I went total because I wanted to be completely blown away, and it paid off. So other than these two teasers, that's my exposure for Force Unleashed.
Awakens.
Awakens, thank you.
I actually have a real sort of Zen attitude about spoilers. I don't really care. I'm very respectful of other people's desire to not have things spoiled, and I'll go out of my way not to do that. But if I hear something that reveals something to me, that doesn't actually ruin anything for me. So I'm kind of okay with it. I do think that someone should have already created some kind of technology with Twitter where you could just enter like the hashtags you want to block, so that you would just not, because I think that's the way people get things spoiled now, is just like randomly scrolling through a feed and something pops out at you and you're like, oh my God, it's his father. You know, it's like, it's that, you know, I don't necessarily know that there's any other way to protect yourself from it. And also, I mean, people are jerks. I think there's people in my life who literally will come into a room and be like, wow, have you been watching Sons of Anarchy? Didn't know that girl died. And you're like, yeah, I'm not there yet. But you just have to kind of, like, I don't know if it's a training thing. I don't know if it's like a weird social thing that people don't get. But I live with it, and I'm fine with it. But I will never spoil anything for you. I promise you that.
Yeah, I share Mary's thought on that. I don't want to spoil anything for anybody, and unfortunately, I've already been spoiled quite a bit on The Force Awakens. I mean, I got one mega spoiler dropped to me last year, and I'm really upset about it. However, I'm still looking forward to the movie, and I think it doesn't really matter so long as it's a good movie. I mean, there are many tales that are told time and time again throughout human history. We know how they go, and yet they're still compelling. I mean, you could take a movie like Titanic, and you know how it ends, but it's an engaging experience. So I think so long as you don't spoil it for other people, and I think the hashtag idea is a great idea, if you can filter that out.
Absolutely.
But also, I mean, I've worked on so many big kind of confidential movies where I've had to like sign a major non-disclosure agreement, and I've gone through the whole movie knowing what's going to happen for these big films, and people are asking me. And I've kind of like just switched that off in my brain. Like I don't even like, it doesn't bother me, and I don't, you know, it's like it's a roadblock with me right now. It doesn't really come in, doesn't go out. It's not a big deal. So that's your good.
Yeah, I don't. I don't really care about spoilers. I don't seek them out. I don't like throw them at people if I can avoid it. But like, you know, like if the only thing that's attractive about a story is its plot, like it wasn't a very good story to begin with. So I've never had a spoiler really ruin anything for me. No one's ever seen a Shakespeare play without knowing the ending. The tragedy of Hamlet means that everybody's going to die. You know, like, you know, Romeo and Juliet tells you the end.
People might not have seen Hamlet yet, Matt. I mean, that was really uncool.
Around to it. You know,
Hashtag Yorick.
But
You're supposed to wait 1,000 years before you can actually.
Naturally. But I think it's also kind of like, to me, the spoiler phobia thing is kind of unfortunate, and it's a product of the DVR world where, like, you know, everyone has their own little delicate viewing schedule, and I haven't seen any of Daredevil yet, you know. But yeah, I'm not going to freak out if someone accidentally tells me something that Kingpin does. But
didn't see that coming.
But you know, I just think it's too bad, because I remember when The Simpsons first premiered back when I was in middle school, and the next day everybody in the playground was talking about The Simpsons, and I imagine that doesn't really happen anymore because people don't watch things live, and that kind of we've kind of lost
to each other in person.
Yeah, that too. But we've kind of lost.
Or if you were at a playground now at this age, that would be weird.
We've sort of lost this national conversation thing about where everybody sort of was on the same page pop culturally, and now that doesn't really occur anymore. And even in line at a Star Wars convention, you don't quite know what you can say to someone. So that's unfortunate to me.
Yeah, I actually, I hate spoilers, like when I'm online and they pop up, but it's funny because when the Phantom Menace came out, I worked at a movie store, rest in peace, Suncoast Motion Picture Company, and we got the novelization for Phantom Menace, and I started reading it while on my breaks, and I got sucked in. I was just like, oh wow, this is like really good. And then I went and saw it in the theater, and I'm like, what'd they do to my book? The book was great. And then yeah, they were great. And then so for the other two prequels, I did the same thing. I read the book before I went and saw the movie at midnight. But so I guess I'm okay if it's on my terms. But I still I'll go see all the movies at midnight so that I know everything, and there's no fear of spoiling through Facebook or whatnot.
As a guy who, when I was 11, there was a kid at school who had the Return of the Jedi storybook, and I traded my cheese pizza so I could read it. I never had a problem with spoilers. It doesn't change how the movie unspools on the screen for me. So as a guy, I've already seen Force Awakens, so it's not really a big deal. The Jar Jar cameo is a little weird, but most of it's pretty good. So
Spoiler alert.
I'm kind of with Lawrence on this one, at least for this movie. I don't care about spoilers for Age of Ultron or Batman versus Superman, stuff like that. But
Bruce Wayne is Batman.
Oh man, are his parents dead? Never know. But I remember my parents took me to see Star Wars when it first came out in the theaters when I was 5 years old, and they were like, "We're going to take you to see this movie everyone's saying is really cool and you'll probably like." I was like, "All right, I don't know what this is," and I came out of it, changed. And that's what I want with Force Awakens, and so I'm trying to avoid spoilers as best as I can. Obviously, anything that's put out by Lucasfilm, I'm cool with. When JJ did the videos, with the X-wing or with the little dude with the packs on his back, and which was practical, which was awesome. And the teasers and the new trailer and stuff like that. That I'm fine with. But when it's like, you heard that, Benedict Cumberbatch is the new Sith Lord, and well, it's not confirmed, but I'm pretty sure it's true. I'm like, dude, shut up. And people, I've actually had people try to kind of force spoilers on me that they've heard. They're like, well, then I heard that. I'm like, no, I don't want to hear it. And they're like, no, I'm just trying to shut up. And they really don't. Some people are they're so excited about it, and I appreciate that they want to share it, but at the same time, be respectful of the people who don't want to hear it.
Can I just say, for one thing, what's amazing to me that I'm a big soundtrack fan, and so I often will buy a score for a film before a movie, and it's actually in the Star Wars ecosystem where I've had films spoiled for me just by the track names. I was really surprised, with Phantom Menace, it's like Qui-Gon's funeral. I don't know who this Qui-Gon guy is, but I guess he's going to eat it in this film.
I knew because I read the book.
Yeah, so it was like, oh, well, see? Well, you were prepared. But so I think that's one of the things too, where it's amazing that some other part of the franchise doesn't go, oh, we need to protect or that people aren't keeping track of release dates or something. Or maybe they should just use numerical indexes for those.
Well, it's interesting. In the soundtrack for Batman Begins, all the track names are named after types of bats.
Yeah.
So it doesn't even tell you what the track is.
Hans Zimmer must be wise to that, right?
Yeah. Let's play another game. You guys ready? Let's see. The Rancors are up by 1. The Rancor Keepers have 0. Let's play another game. We'll start with you guys, okay? And we're going to be playing for Star Wars planets. Name a Star Wars planet. Ready?
Raxus Prime.
Jakku.
Coruscant.
Alderaan.
Dagobah.
Mustafar.
Hoth.
Alderaan.
Tatooine.
I just said Alderaan.
Shit, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Oh,
You were in the
okay.
zone.
It's
You were in the
okay.
zone.
It's all right, but 2 points now for Rancor Keepers. You'll have to catch up.
The bonus question. I thought I was so clever saying Jakku.
Now, how is Jakku spelled?
Jakku? Is that correct? Yeah.
I thought it was like like as a nod to the late Jacko, Michael Jackson. No? Was that a spoiler?
I want to talk about Star Wars trivia and just facts about the Star Wars universe. And any one of you can jump in with this if you've got something interesting. I find that the more I know about Star Wars, the less I feel like I know. I keep finding out new stuff about the way it was made, about the films. It's just amazing, this sort of, and all of us have sort of different areas of encyclopedic knowledge. I recently found out that the reason that protocol droids, their arms are bent like this, is because Anthony Daniels was so skinny during the filming of Star Wars, if he bent his arms this way, straight, the arm fell off. He had to actually bend his arms in order to hold the arms on the protocol droids. So from that day forward, all protocol droids have bent arms. It's strange, but do any of you have a really interesting fact that you could blow us away with? Like anyone on the panel?
I mean, I don't know if this one I think is a fairly common one, but it's still pretty neat, where R2-D2 got his name. There was, when they, in film, they name all the film reels. And there was one, was it Reel 2? Dialogue 2. And they were like, so it was like, oh, get me R2-D2. It was just like the short form. Next thing you know, they're like, hey, that's a good name for a robot. Sure. So that was kind of cool.
That was during American Graffiti, actually.
Yes.
They were just making American Graffiti.
But it's funny that you bring up the whole, the trivia thing, because there's so many different aspects of Star Wars trivia. There's people who are all into the behind the scenes and the making of, and then there's like, I'm a big fan of the not so much the expanded universe as much as the just background characters and droids and technology and stuff like that. I love the Star Wars Encyclopedia of technology and stuff like that.
There's a really good book, actually, I recommend to everyone, The Secret History of Star Wars. Actually, Matt, you turned me on to that book. There's a great thing in the book that talks about in the early development of Star Wars that Lucas had planned 3 trilogies, and the middle trilogy was Star Wars. The first trilogy was the Clone Wars, and the third trilogy was to be called Jedi Wars. This was in his early, that's what I mean, like weird things that you find out. Anyone else have anything to add on this?
This is more of a filmmaking thing, but Lawrence Kasdan wrote the final draft of the shooting script for Empire, and was originally written by Lee Brackett, who was a famous sci-fi author, but she passed away during the pre-production of the movie. So Lucas needed someone to write the shooting script, and Kasdan had just finished his first run on Raiders, and had flown up to deliver it by hand to Lucas, because he was like it was his first major project. So he gave it to Lucas, and Lucas says, I need someone to write Empire, the shooting script. Here's what we got. Like, can you go do that? And Kasdan says, but you haven't read Raiders. You have no idea if you like my writing. And Lucas goes, well, go home tonight and keep writing, and if I'll read this tonight, and if I don't like it, I'll call you, and if I don't call you, keep going. And that's how he got that job.
All right, my favorite is recently they unearthed this little movie that they made during Return of the Jedi, Return of the Ewok, I think it's called, where Wicket's running around. So they had this bug of making these little tiny movies, and the best one is the one that never got made. We all know that they titled Return of the Jedi, Revenge of the Jedi, Blue Harvest, Horror Beyond Imagination, because they wanted to keep the reporters and the fans away. But everybody really knew what it was, right?
So the same font.
Right. So they're out in the desert, and they're in Arizona, and they're filming the sail barge, and there's a big sandstorm, and it shuts down production. So they're all huddled in their trailers, and they hatch this idea that they're actually going to make Blue Harvest as a horror movie. It's going to star Carrie Fisher, who's being haunted by a ghost, and then they're going to have dune buggies and werewolves come out of the dunes to attack her. And when Mark Hamill says, this is a terrible idea, Lucas says, well, you know, Corman makes movies in 5 days, so we can too. So, but the whole thing got derailed somehow, but that would have been the greatest artifact. A real version of Blue Harvest would have been fantastic.
I actually just learned that Yoda was originally supposed to be played by a monkey. Am I the only person who didn't know this, or are there other?
The Emperor
like a
was.
monkey?
The Emperor was a monkey.
Yeah.
In Empire, and I think it's probably going to be the same monkey. It's going to be Yoda. That's probably how they were
like
going to do it.
He was very talented.
Multifaceted.
I've got one quick one. Yeah, so now this is a Final First-centric thing, but for those who don't know, in Revenge of the Sith, well, the 501st as an organization is a total fan-made creation. Albin Johnson said, I want to go ahead and dress up as Stormtrooper. He gave an organization name. He just said, I want 501st because it sounds really cool, kind of an homage to 101st Airborne. So it sounds like a bunch of badasses. Well, anyway, the group got popular enough and recognized by Lucasfilm and all that. So when you see Anakin, after he turns to the dark side, march against the Jedi Temple, that battalion is actually the 501st. It got so weird that a movie created a fan group, and then the fan group goes back into the movie and is now actually canon. And that theme is actually the 501st theme.
And another example of that is in Clone Wars, there's the R2KT droid.
Yes.
Another fan created thing for Albin's daughter, correct? Right. And R2KT was in an arc. It was the 5th season of Clone Wars with there's a whole bunch of droids who go on a mission with I forgot the little commando's name.
I don't remember.
Steve Stanton voiced him, I know that. And I was like, that's so R2KT is part of the universe now too. And it's like a lot, it's kind of neat to see how the fan creations kind of ease their way in when they see something they like. They're like, ooh, the fans are, know what's going on. Let's show them some respect.
You guys ready to play another game?
Sure.
Are they?
Here we go.
This time.
Okay, are you guys ready?
We need you.
All right, we're going to start with the Rancors because they're ahead. And we're going to go with alien races.
You ready?
This will be a quick one. Alien races, go.
Trandoshan.
Jawa.
Rhodian.
Duncan.
Minok.
Doug.
Geonosian.
Wookiee.
Wampa.
Ewok.
Ithorian.
Did someone already say
I
Ewok?
didn't hear it.
Did we do it again?
I didn't say Ewok.
No, as a big fan, I wouldn't have said Ewok.
Well, okay, you guys.
Ithorian.
Bothan.
Deveronian.
Nice.
E.T.
Yes!
Unfortunately, that counts.
That was great! Oh my
Aqualish.
Oh, nice.
Human.
Human, yes?
Nemoidian.
Nice.
Tauntaun.
Jawa.
Repeat.
Was it?
Wait, Jawa was already said.
Yeah.
1 point for the Rancor team. Okay.
That says Jawa.
Now let's go. I want to talk to you guys about memorabilia. Everyone has a piece of Star Wars memorabilia, something we got as kids. I brought a couple things. I asked you guys to bring stuff. I know it's not possible to bring
I'm
stuff.
wearing mine.
I've got this is a custom-made George Lucas action figure in the original 12-card thing, which is pretty cool. And then this is the one thing I love also about Star Wars toys. This is a die-cast Millennium Falcon, which came out like, 78, 79. I had this when I was a kid. What's cool about it is how dirty it is. Star Wars toys were meant to be played with, and I remember as a kid, this is Michigan dirt from where I grew up in the Midwest, and I have no interest in cleaning it up and making it look nice and shiny new, because this is something I've had since I was a kid and played with, and I love that it's dirty. I think that's cool about Star Wars toys. People play with them. So can you tell me?
It looks like the real thing.
It actually kind of adds
really
to
cool.
it in a way. But can you tell me about a piece of memorabilia you have, what it meant to you, and if you have it, share it with us.
I don't have any of my memorabilia with me because
You're kind of wearing memorabilia.
I'm wearing. Well, this is fan-made memorabilia, but as far as like when the actual, toys came out and everything, I begged my parents to get me the mail away. I understood that, like, it doesn't come with the figures, and, but and they were like, well, we don't really understand what this is about. But when we went down to visit my grandparents in Florida, and the big thing was like, oh, now we're going to go to Toys R Us, and, you get a present at Toys R Us. And we get there, and they had every original, all 12 of the new figures, and they had the X-Wing and the TIE Fighter. And my grandfather goes, well, you can have all the figures and one ship. And I was like, X-Wing. Like, I didn't even, hesitate. Had to have the X-Wing. But I remember, I'd never played with toys so much as I did with my Star Wars toys. And I would set up dioramas, and I would, and I still have some of my few original ones. And, now I've gotten more into things like the Gentle Giant stuff and the Sideshow Bus, stuff when I can afford it. And I mean, for me, it's amazing to see the level of quality and everything that the memorabilia keeps increasing, and it's just so amazing, and it's really, really affecting my bank account.
Other than I brought my son, whose legal name is Luke Skywalker. There he is. Yes, yeah.
Awesome.
I brought this from my collection when I was not very young, but I mailed away for the Anakin Skywalker. This was the final figure in the collection here in America. There was one more, the yak face, which unfortunately we didn't get. But it's my original home address where I grew up. It's unopened, and this Star Wars figure represents I got old. It came in the mail, and by the time I had sent the proofs of purchases and then waited 6 to 8, 10, 12, 15 weeks, by the time it got here, I didn't care about opening him and playing with him because I'd grown up and was now looking at Heather Thomas and the Fall Guy. So it's such a cool thing because it represents the young me and the growing older me, and it's pristine, and who wants to play with the old man anyways? And this character doesn't even appear in the movie. He's dead.
But in many ways, he also this figure also represents your return to your fandom.
Yes, because there was a moment when, after I got married, I went back in the garage and I Indiana Jones it and unearthed it, and I was like, here it is. I take it, I bury it in the sand for 1,000 years, it becomes priceless. And you know what? It says Kenner, and long live Kenner. Who cares about Hasbro? There it is.
Mindy, I'm curious, and also you describe yourself as a casual fan, but you read the novelizations of the prequels, so I think you're being modest.
These guys. I had a really cool piece of memorabilia from a boyfriend at the time when Attack of the Clones came out. There's a scene where Anakin's on the speeder and he's headed to the Tusken Raider camp to get his mom, and the sun is setting, and it's a beautiful, visually, it's a stunning scene.
Pre-genocide, stunning scene.
Horrible things are happening, but it's beautiful. And I really like the way that scene looks, and the music's playing, and he managed to get a poster of that scene with the sun setting in the background. And remember, this is 2002, where it wasn't so easy to just pull it up on the internet and print it through an internet service and have it delivered to your house. He put some effort into it, and then we broke up and I got rid of it. But it meant a lot. It was a really big deal at the time. If you're listening, we're still friends.
It's kind of reflective of what was happening in the scene.
Yeah. Padme was cool with genocide. It's cool.
Yeah, she really forgave him.
He was really sad,
Yeah.
My thing my dad was a huge movie nut, and he subscribed to Daily Variety. And one day in 82 or 81 or 82, he gave me this insert that came with it, which was this big, and it's this big thing, and on the front it's all text, and it said 20th Century Fox is super proud to be associated with the #1 and #2 box office hits of all time. And you open it up, and it had the poster of Star Wars and the poster of Empire Strikes Back, and then you opened it up again into a 4-way gatefold, and it was just the giant logo, Revenge of the Jedi.
Now in production.
May 23rd, 1983. And I used to look at that and stare at it and wait over and over. And when that came out, I was 7, so I'd waited for that movie literally half my life. And and so that was my thing. I still have that up north somewhere in my parents' house, but that was my favorite non-toy memorabilia.
That's cool.
I had the same thing taped up on my ceiling over my bed for the longest time, and it was huge. And when I had in high school, I had my Peachy folder, and I actually had little boxes to tick off the days until Jedi opened. I was like a convict in my jail cell, just like marking the days. I have tons of toys. I have tons of stuff at home, but I got into collecting cast and crew apparel for some reason. And so I brought some things, and I have some new stuff. I've got my Force Awakens Episode 7 Creature Effects Crew hat. I've got the Episode 7 Stunts cap, 7. I got my, where is it? Hang on. My Episode 7 Stunt beanie. But I have old stuff, too. I have, I got this from someone at ILM. This is a Revenge of the Jedi crew sweatshirt. Legit. I just grabbed stuff. I wasn't even sure what was in here, and then I don't know what this is. Wait, what?
Howard the Duck
should not be there. But no, this is the piece de resistance. This came from a friend of mine who was on set in Crescent City when it was shot. This is the real deal. This is Blue Harvest. This is a real shirt. It's a medium, so I can't wear it. But it even still has some holes in it from it. Yeah, this is real. So this is like my most prized cast and crew possession, no doubt.
Just real quick, I also think it's really interesting that there are collectors who are, much like trivia, there's collectors who specialize in different areas. I know there's a panel on Star Wars knockoffs. And there's one guy, Joe, who just collects knockoffs, and he's like an expert on, in Turkey they have like the Blue Star, yeah, it's crazy, and but I think I've never really heard about someone who just collects.
I mean, I've just collected, but yeah.
But that's but that's pretty cool. I think that's amazing.
Cool.
I realized that I was probably not a kid with a lot of toys now that I think about it. Like my mom, I didn't even have Barbies. Like I had nothing. I had like a Kermit the Frog plush. I remember that's like one of the toys. And I had a Mickey Mouse gumball machine. But I didn't really have a lot of toys. And I didn't actually, my first viewing of Star Wars Episode 4 was from a Betamax copy taped from TV that was broadcast in Guam. So I did not have the theater experience that a lot of you guys did. I loved it, but it had commercial interruptions and everything. But so, like, my mom never bought me any Star Wars toys, and I think I made up for that as an adult. Like, the only thing that I have from childhood, I used to collect erasers, and I actually had a Millennium Falcon eraser, which I loved just because of how, like, textured it was and everything. Most of the other erasers were, like, Hello Kitty kind of things, and some of them were, like, fake food-looking things. But the Millennium Falcon one was, like, my favorite, like, boy toy that I had. The thing I always wanted, for some reason, even though I didn't have any of the figures or any of the vehicles, was that Darth Vader head carrying case. Like, for some reason, even to this day, I've always thought, like, I don't know what I'd put in there, but I really wish I'd gotten that as a kid. So for some reason, it's more about, like, handbags than it is about the actual toys for me. But I loved that Darth Vader head.
It certainly didn't hold figures.
Right.
When you closed it up, they all just fell.
Exactly. No,
Even though they added the strip that was supposed to hold them in. Yeah. And the little weapons area, but that always popped open.
Hey, Kenner, it's called gravity.
Well, that's the one that I wish I had, and perhaps I'll end up buying one at some point.
Great.
For me, I mean, I've been collecting forever. My parents got me into it, so I do have my X-Wing that they found someplace, and I can tell you where it is. It's probably not in the best shape, because I will agree with what was said earlier. I think all of our imaginations were open more. We played with our Star Wars toys probably more than anything. I think actually play changed because of that. So I really have that as a really important item. And then also a poster, it's hard for me to describe it. It's the classic A poster from the 1977 release, but it's actually a modified version. It's basically a half sheet, and it's rotated 90 degrees. It was very limited run. My parents found it at one point. I think I got it when I graduated from college. So that's probably my absolute most rare piece. You guys haven't even seen it because it's in the bedroom, like basically secured and all that kind of stuff. But
For
it's
only you and your wife.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But it's basically the classic style A sheet, but it's a half modified. It's an amazing thing, and Obi-Wan and Luke are a little bit more in the forefront, and there's a bank of X-Wings down below. It's an amazing piece, so that's probably my favorite piece.
Cool. Let's play another game. You guys ready?
The repeats.
Okay, it's 2-1. We'll start with you guys, the Rancor Keepers. Name a Jedi.
Qui-Gon Jinn.
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Anakin Skywalker.
Yoda.
Mace Windu.
Count Dooku.
Jarl Poof.
Kid Fisto.
Yaddle.
Did we already say Leia? Does she count?
Judges.
Judge. The EU is no longer canon, so no.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was ready.
That was not clear.
I was ready with Kiadi Mundi.
Nice. Kid Fisto.
I got to go with what the judge says.
Ships and vehicles and planets and stuff, but I don't. The story points. That's different.
I got to go with what the judge says.
We let him have. We let him have V-wing.
Yeah, and I did say Raxus Prime, which is from the games.
All right.
They're trying to give it to us. Look, this is what's beautiful about Star Wars. No hate. No hate.
What's also beautiful is he just said it's a half sheet, half wing, A seat, A seat. We all would like. We know exactly what poster that is. Exactly. Yeah. Like a surgeon operating in the dark. We're gonna move the pancreas. Yes, we know exactly.
We're running short on time, but I have another question for you guys. I asked you each to prepare an answer for this before the panel, and it's about Disney's acquisition of Star Wars, right? We've all seen the success of the Marvel movies and the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the MCU, and I think one of the great things about the Marvel movies is those little post-credit sequences. I love the post-credit sequences on the Marvel movies. I mean, it's actually trained audiences in a way to stay through the credits, which is something I always did anyways, but it was like this Easter egg and a payoff for people who are real film lovers like everyone in this room. Now that Disney owns Star Wars and we've seen the digital versions come out with some slight changes, now the Fox logo isn't on the beginning of them anymore, are we going to see like Marvel endings, post-credit sequence endings to Star Wars movies, and what would you imagine one of your endings to be? So pick a movie and then pitch to us your ending, post-credit sequence ending for any of the 6 current Star Wars films. And anyone jump in, no order to this. And I have one too that I'm going to share with you that I think is awesome.
My post-credit scene that I would want to see the most is
for what movie?
Return of the Jedi.
Okay.
I bet I know what this is.
Yeah, oh yeah. You see the sail barge, it's still smoking and everything, and the camera comes in close to the Sarlacc. You see this like explosion, and then you just see this hand reach out and grab onto the sand, and then that's it, cut.
I'm actually kind of hoping that at some point in the new trilogy, like they need to do something that's like totally crazy, and that no one can do this. This is impossible to, no person could pull this off. And it cuts to Han, and Han just goes, I know a guy. At the Tatooine, and they have to go pull him out, like to make it, a real thing.
That'd be pretty cool.
Empire Strikes Back, the credits roll. We cut back to the Millennium Falcon. Billy D. Williams as Lando is lamenting the way that Han has redecorated his ship. And the last shot is him looking at the camera going, and I'm going to find this guy?
I think The Empire Strikes Back should end with some children on Bespin finding a hand that just fell from the sky.
Well, the new lightsaber, that lightsaber is in the new trailer, so.
Right. Yeah.
Isn't that the plot of the new movie?
I don't know about extra scenes, but you know how the Pixar films do the bloopers? I'd love to see like bloopers where someone like a droid walking into a door, and then they all laugh about it, and the camera comes into shot. Yeah.
I would love like a Smokey and the Bandit style montage at the end of just bloopers.
Awesome.
I think I would do Empire, and I would want it to be like real close up on like this thing moving around, and like you hear what we would that later know as Jabba's voice saying like, no, in Huttese, like to the right, to the left, up more, up, down, and like, then just like perfect. And then like you pull out and it's Han having been hung on the wall, and you hear Jabba go, ho, ho, like laugh, but like it pulls out and the guard that's been hanging the thing is standing there with his back to you, and then he turns and it's Lando. And the idea would be like that if it was in the original, you're like, okay, well we don't know what who the guy talking is, probably Jabba, we haven't seen him, and then you're like, what's Lando doing there? Is he working with Jabba the Hutt? Did he set this all? Because you didn't quite know, People forget that, after Empire, we didn't know, was Darth Vader lying when he said he was his father? No one knew. There was all these questions everybody had. Who is the other? Who is another? And that would have been another thing for everybody to argue about between movies.
Does Lando pull his visor down and look at camera?
No, he only does that in that hallway. Periodically.
He's just gotten the job. He didn't have a uniform yet.
I've got two lingering issues from the first two trilogies that I was hoping would go ahead and be addressed at some point. The first, of course, is that line, no disintegrations. Vader knows Boba Fett. I figured there's going to be some sort of payoff on that in Rebels, so we don't have to worry about that because we already know that something's going to happen with that. But the one other element that I think is just unaddressed and is hanging out there, and I could totally see it being kind of that Marvel one-off, at the end of Revenge of the Sith, it's already been an emotional thing. We have to wait to wonder what happens when A New Hope comes. I think you see a rather kind of young, beat-down Obi-Wan Kenobi go for a drink in a bar. Could be Mos Eisley, could be Mos Espa. Nobody knows him. Takes off the hood. He orders a drink, and the bartender, like you would see in any kind of Western thing, says, "So what's your name, bub?" And you get a long pause and a sigh, and he just says, "Call me Ben." Because there's no connection to the Obi-Wan Ben transition in any of the story arc right now. That is the only thing that is really missing from that whole thing where Lucas tried to rejigger everything so it connected, and that is kind of hanging out there.
I would just ask Mindy if that's addressed in the novelizations, in the prequel novelizations.
I don't know. I read them 20 years ago.
My thing is I'd like to see at the end of episode 1, it's this big celebration. They've defeated the Trade Federation. Post-credits, you have Chancellor Palpatine standing at a table. And here are, of course, Boss Nass, the Gungans, and then here are the humans. And he says to them, to celebrate our victory, to celebrate this new world, the underwater dwellers, the Gungans, coming together with the land dwellers of Naboo, we shall rename our planet Alderaan. I think it would just add a little bit more weight to Alderaan being destroyed, and it would also make more sense. I don't know. It just seemed to be...
But the special editions change that. It cannot be because of the special editions.
Well, that's true. Nitpicking again.
I think the end of Phantom Menace should show a young Jake Lloyd redoing his resume, perhaps choosing a different career path.
But this is totally off topic, but this kind of made me, when we were talking about the end of Empire Strikes Back, because everyone makes that joke about Lando wearing Han's clothes, which he isn't, by the way.
This is Corellian clothing.
Yeah, but he's wearing a collared shirt that's buttoned up. But that's not in the new trailer. I'm waiting for this meme to pop up. It's gonna be a picture of Han from the new trailer, that freeze frame, and it's gonna be 30 years, still wearing the same clothes.
Let's play one final game because we have to wrap it up. And I'm going to ask you guys, we'll start with your team here, the Rancors. Name a rebel.
Orimako, Pruneface.
Big Starklighter.
Mon Mothma.
Jack Porkins.
Dak Ralter.
Wedge Antilles.
Luke Skywalker.
Princess Leia.
Han Solo.
Major Durlin.
Chewbacca.
General Rears.
No.
Crix Madine.
Oh, Veers, not Madine.
Yeah, General Reed. That's from the porn parody.
All too easy.
General Riken.
I want to thank you guys on our panel. Everyone was so great. Give them a big hand, everybody. Thank you so much. And I want to thank you guys for coming here to see a podcast. I know there's a lot of things to do at Star Wars Celebration, so I appreciate you all for coming here. Thank you for coming. Have a great Star Wars Celebration. I'll be in the lobby handing out some buttons to those who want them. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And may the Force be with you.
And with you.
What do you think, guys? Pretty cool, huh? I want to thank Chris Gore for allowing me to run that as an episode, a nice bonus episode, folded into 91 Reasons. 91 Reasons and Star Wars, they go together like chocolate and peanut butter, don't they, folks? They sure do. Hope you enjoyed it. We had a great time at Celebration, and this panel was the highlight. It was a lot of fun hanging out with all the Star Wars fans and seeing Steve Sansweet and his amazing collection, and Anthony Daniels, who walked the line, and the lady at 7-Eleven who sold us the hot dog big gulp combos that we had for lunch. It was a great day. I am Jeff Tucker. I'm the voice. Thanks for listening to this episode of 91 Reasons.
Thanks for listening to 91 Reasons. Please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes. Find us on Facebook. Is anyone even still listening?